Okay, it's time to get started. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. And thanks for joining us on our webinar on the topic of accelerating HR digitalization with Caspio. In this webinar, our partners V2A Consulting, who are a management consulting firm, as well as Akcelita, who specialize in technology consulting and software development, will show how they help a large water utility with dynamic capacity sizing, automated decision making, integrations to ERP, and more with the power of Caspio's low code platform. My name is Nick Sangvi, and I lead the alliances team here at Caspio. And I consult with our partners and customers on whether Caspio's low-code platform is the right choice for them. We want to make this webinar a fun and interactive experience for everyone. So please go over to the chat and say hi, drop us, use the Q&A button to leave us questions throughout the webinar. You'll see those at the bottom of the webinar window. And here's me as well saying hi to everyone, and let us know what you hear, what you would love to learn on today's webinar. We'll try to cover as many topics as we can that are relevant to today's theme, right? And we'll also make sure to have enough breaks throughout the webinar to cover questions as they come along. So you can use the Q&A button for doing that. And so again, thanks a lot, everyone, for being here. And in the topic of being interactive, let's first get started with a quick poll. This will help us shape the presentation to meet the attendees' needs. And so the first poll, you should see it right now on your screen. And this just understand your familiarity or where you are in your journey with low code, no code platforms. So you should see three options on your screen. Pick one if you're a beginner that's just exploring low code, no code, and how it can work for you. Intermediate if you worked on a couple of different tools, or expert if you have extensive experience on either one particular tool or in the low code, no code space in general. And this will help us kind of tweak the next 55 minutes or so accordingly to match your level of experience in this space. And so we'll just give it a few more seconds for everyone's answers to come in. 3, 2, 1, and here's the last call. Here, I'll share the results with you. And here, so as you can see, about 75% of you, the vast majority, are in the intermediate space where you have worked already on a few tools, and you're still hungry and eager to learn more. So that's great. And today, that's what we'll focus on. And so we have an information-packed webinar for you today. So I'll quickly share the agenda and get you over to our great content. So I'll start things off with a quick introduction to Caspio. It looks like many of you are at the intermediate level, so we'll try to go quickly through that. I'll turn it over to our wonderful partners, Renee Yemen of Akcelita and Mariam Rivera of V2A Consulting. Thanks to both of you for being with us here today. And they will share information about their companies and then review the HR transformation case study, along with a demo of the app that they built on the Caspio platform. And again, just as a reminder, webinar will have several breaks for questions and answers. So please keep your questions coming throughout the webinar via the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And also, last but not least, we'll be sharing the recording of today's discussion with all the attendees and all the registrants once the webinar is completed as well, along with a copy of the slide deck for those who are interested. So with that, let's get started. And so at Caspio, we believe in no code, no compromise. Just because you're using a low code, no code platform doesn't mean that you have to compromise in what you're trying to accomplish with it. But first, a quick primer for those who are new to the low-code, no-code space. So these are visual app development platforms that leverage point-and-click tools. And more importantly for you as a user, it means that people with either no programming skills or very little technical experience can also build apps by clicking, not coding. And moving on to the top 5 business benefits, there are quite a few, but just to talk about the top business benefits of low-code, no-code platforms. They can help you accelerate your app development time by up to 20 times and thus reduce your project cost. These platforms can help you expand your talent pool to junior and non-technical resources. Many of us are facing the impacts of the talent crunch worldwide after the pandemic. And so these platforms can help you address shortcomings in your talent pool and expand it to include junior, non-technical resources, business users. We like to call them citizen developers, etc. So that way you are no longer dependent on highly skilled technical resources. You can focus on the app development and leave the hosting and security to the platform. And the fourth point is you can reduce technical debt and the maintenance because the platform, as it keeps upgrading, it automatically carries over your upgrades to the newer versions. And last but not least, these types of platforms allow you to be truly agile and align your C-suite, IT, and the lines of business so that all the departments are on the same page and headed in the same direction. So we covered the benefits. Now, just to talk about the essential features of low-code, no-code platforms. One is that they provide for a guided development process. So that allows even non-technical users, citizen developers to follow simple wizards to guide you through the software development process and ensure that you are using best practices. So think of these as guardrails that keep you in bound and make things simple and stay out of trouble. They also provide you with visual development tools to develop the components of your applications, such as forms, reports, dashboards, etc., using point and click, drag and drop functions. And this comes with a powerful data management in the form of an integrated online database and dashboarding tools so that it is scalable, easy to use, and tightly integrated across the platform. You should also have easy deployment to be able to deploy your application quickly and flexibly to your own external and internal web properties. Your low-code platform should have a cloud infrastructure that provides enterprise-grade security and allows you to scale your application to your needs as needed, up or down. And they should allow for flexible user and access management capabilities, ideally paired with your user App Directory or Active Directory through single sign-on, thus giving you full control of secure access to the correct application views, both for internal and external users. And finally, all of this allows for easy modifications in a truly agile mode that aligns C-suite, IT, and business. And needless to say, Caspio provides you with all of these features and more. So Caspio, as some of you may know, is the first mover in the no-code space. And we, in fact, helped Forrester and other analysts in defining this category. We are still the only no-code platform with a fully integrated cloud database, unlimited app users, anywhere deployment, and standards-based flexibility, extensibility. So just to recap these features and benefits in greater detail, one is the most important benefit is that there's no cap on users with Caspio. So we don't penalize you for growing with us. There's unlimited both internal app developers or internal users as well as external app users with Caspio. We provide enterprise-grade infrastructure running on AWS and SQL Server, thus allowing you to scale as you need to. And with us, you can build once and deploy anywhere. So you can embed your Caspio app seamlessly on any web property with just a couple of clicks. We provide industry-leading security and compliance with HIPAA, ISO, SOC, GDPR, and many other security and privacy regulations. You can customize, expand, and integrate your applications with a wide variety of other enterprise applications, as you will see in the demo later today. Akcelita integrated their Caspio application, their SAP ERP, just to give you an example. And last but not least, extending Caspio apps is very easy. So we do provide a no-code, low-code platform, but we understand that sometimes you need to extend those beyond the power that we provide within the platform. And should you choose to do so, you will be able to do that with using industry standard languages like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SQL, REST APIs, etc. So that way you don't have to learn any new proprietary languages just to use or extend the Caspio platform. And that last point is important for the topic of today's webinar. So Caspio combines the best aspects of no-code platforms with pro-code developers like Akcelita. Unlike simpler no-code app designers with limited extensibility, Caspio allows you to use pro-coders to develop applications that are tailored to your needs. Similar to traditional development, but at the speed of SaaS applications or faster, while avoiding the limitations that are inherent in packaged software. So it is this flexibility that has helped us win over 15,000 customers of all sizes and across all verticals around the world, including some of these famous logos that you see here. And many of them start using Caspio with one use case in mind, but realizing the power of the platform, they're able to scale it across various functions and departments, ranging from sales and marketing to finance and HR. And it is in this space of HR that Akcelita and V2A Consulting have developed a robust application for a large water utility. And before I turn it over to them, I just wanted to remind everyone that feel free to keep chiming in with your Q&A, and we'll keep covering them throughout the webinar. Right? So with this, I wrap up our Caspio presentation. Again, as a reminder, we believe in no code, no compromise. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Rene Yamin. He's the founder and CEO at Akcelita, and Mariam Rivera, who's the management consultant with V2A Consulting. And they combined as a firm, been working with Caspio since 2011, so more than 10 years now. And now, with this, over to you, Rene, if you would like to share a quick introduction of your company. And after you do this, we'll do a quick poll as well before we jump into the topic.
Sure. So thank you very much, Nick, and the Caspio team for inviting us for this to have us here in this webinar and for the time that we're going to spend together. I think the first thing that as an introduction, explaining my role, I used to be one of the senior directors in V2A Consulting, and since a couple of years ago, I became the manager or CEO of Akcelita, which is the technology arm. So to Akcelita, it's in fact a sister company of V2A Consulting. And that's important as a context because I will explain a little bit what V2A Consulting is doing in the management consulting role and how is that, how Akcelita, it's helping them to execute faster, better, and with better ROI projects for their clients, okay? And with me, it's Mariam Rivera. Mariam Rivera, it's an engagement management, an engagement manager with V2A Consulting. She was also one of our clients, and she has seen the picture from both sides, from the consulting side, but also from the client perspective. And it's an interesting view that she will, give us when we go over the case study that we're going to talk about today. Okay. So next slide.
So let's run a quick poll.
Sure.
And then we can move on. So Here is a poll, and just we wanted to understand in terms of, and since we're on the topic of management consulting, uh, here are some of the business types of challenges that you might be currently facing, right? And whether or not you've tried to address them with no code, low code, but just in terms of business challenges, some of the challenges listed here, feel free to select the best options for you, either insufficient resources, executive buy-in, lack of time, lack of budget, security governance, or none of the above. If you're facing no problems at all, none of the above. And see that quite a few responses that have come in. So we'll end the poll in 3, 2, 1. And here are the results. So 50% of you selected lack of time as one of the major constraints or challenges that you're facing. That was followed by these three options were equally tied: insufficient resources, lack of budget, or none of the above. And it could be just that the challenge that you're facing is just not covered in here in these options. That's also a possibility. So, but lack of time was a major one, along with lack of budget and insufficient resources. With this, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Okay. So lack of time, right? So that's one of the most important for all of us. And I'll give a little bit of details why we like a lot using Caspio. And it goes to the heart of that comment of lack of time. So our agenda, a little bit, what we're going to talk about, what is the digital first approach that V2A is following. Then we're going to review the case study and open it for Q&A. We want to make this a little bit more interactive. So the Q&A, if you want to drop Q&As on the chat, we try to answer those questions as we all know. So what's the digital first approach? And let me just tell a story of the consulting firm, right? It's a classical management consulting firm. Most of the partners we used to work for other larger consulting firms. Myself, I worked for McKinsey for 6 years, and then I just established with a couple of partners our V2A or Vision to Action firm. And so we did pretty much the same work at a smaller scale for smaller clients, doing management consulting and strategic advisory services. But then we evolved to provide a little bit more support during execution. We saw that our recommendations, as it happened in the large firms, some of the recommendations were not necessarily implemented as designed. And so in this new firm, as the name explains, Vision to Action, we wanted to help our clients to implement. And that's kind of the middle stage of the firm. So in doing that implementation, we also saw that before the digitalization wave came into play, we already saw that there was a need to create really agile or fast way or accelerated way to develop applications that would enable process improvements. And so that's why we started Akcelita on the side, right? And so we had two firms. One was technical, one was management consulting. And now for the next phase of evolution of the firm, the 3.0, as the firm calls it, it's an integration of the way consulting is done. We still advise CEOs and strategic issues, but we also see implementation including digital tools. And that's where the combination of V2A, Akcelita, and Caspio comes into play. Now, next slide, please. So V2A had to adapt the way they organize their projects in order to accommodate this new digital first strategy. So in this slide, what it shows is schematic or conceptually how a project is run. So V2A coordinates or leads the problem solving and the execution of the project itself. And as they work, they also integrate client and team members. They become part of the project team. In the same manner, Akcelita provides the technical know-how to the V2A project or project lead to understand what are the tools that can be developed in order to implement the changes that V2A and their clients are trying to to achieve. And that is achieved, we do that either by placing a developer exclusively working with that project, V2A. Sometimes it's embedded, sometimes it's just remote, and sometimes it's part-time. But that's a collaboration we do, close collaboration with V2A, and that's the organization of the project. Of course, and Akcelita as a partner, a Caspio partner, we rely and really count with the support of the team, Caspio's team, I have to say. That clearly I am a partner of Caspio for a reason, and one of the reasons is that I do appreciate the support and the quickness of the answers that we get when we stumble into something that we, for some reason, couldn't solve. So that's why we picture it here as an integral part of the project, because we do rely a lot in the support that Caspio gives on the technical side. Next slide. The other big change that the project management on the consulting side have implemented is, and what this slide shows, on the top is the traditional work plan that V2A implemented with doing operational improvement projects: diagnose, design whatever the improvement was, pilot it, and then implement it. Well, that has changed in this 3.0 era. The diagnosis is still there because it's important to know what the problem is and if you're solving the right problem. But then when you start to design, what we changed is that iterative approach, this agile approach to development of the tools. And this is where we've done this in several ways. We've done it traditional development, and we've done it with Caspio. And I have to say, of course, that I like a lot more Caspio because the developers that we dedicate to it are more concerned with the toughest part of the development, not the underlying or the foundation. Just to give an example of what, and I'm going through that right now. We're doing a project off Caspio, and we have done projects on Caspio. And what Caspio allows the development team to do is just forget about user management, security, if the database is large enough to, you have to provision it, if the servers are there. So all the back end, it's on Nick's side, right? So Nick, you take care of that. I just, my team just focuses with the V2A team together to see what's the best flow of the workflow, what are the requirements that the client needs to have, the information that they need to get to make the decisions they're going to make. Backend, I forget about that. It's on Caspio. And that really helps the process, the development process. And that's why you see the claim that it's faster, because indeed it is. You don't spend time doing the backend. You just go in and design and iterate over the design really quickly. And then on the implementation, I also have to say that it doesn't take, it depends on what you're doing, right? If it's a very large company, there is a change management process that V2A typically is the one that leads on that side. So Marian can explain that a little bit further. Just to roll out a tool, whether you use it in Caspio or not, is going to take the change management side of it, which V2A Consulting does very well. But I have to say that having Caspio and being able to change things on the fly helps, because sometimes when you already tested in the pilot, but when you're implemented in a large scale, you notice that some of the things are not flowing the way they should, and you need to make those changes really quick. Caspio is great for doing that. We have made changes on a data page, deploy it, and it's there quickly. And it doesn't have to be a developer who does that. Marian's team can do that, because they can go in, change a data page, add or remove a field, and it's deployable right away. Next slide, please. So in terms of the case study, we wanted to bring a really beautiful project that we did that combined a lot of the things that V2A does and a lot of the things that we could do from Akcelita standpoint of view. So the case study itself, it's what we call the HR capacity, and maybe the HR professionals will not like the capacity word too much. And I think the concept here was, in a way, it was very operationally minded. So we wanted to understand, how can we manage the staffing process of a large company in a very dynamic way? So if I was missing someone in a particular place, how could I fill up that position? Maybe I could fill it up either by hiring outside or transferring someone. So that was the problem that we were trying to solve for this water utility. And the context in which we were doing it, it's a very large utility. We're talking 5,000 plus FTEs. they were in the middle of a modernization plan, so they were very aggressively pursuing hard, infrastructure projects, really hard, construction, pipe layout, pipe remodel, what they do. So their mindset was, how can we do that faster and better? They had to comply with federal requirements, and they wanted to go to capital markets to raise money. So this was the agenda was aggressive because of that. But in parallel, the CEO had the aspiration to become a world-class organization. And one of the things that he said, and I remember that clearly, is saying, if we want to get there, we need to manage our people, our talent, in a very efficient way. And they didn't have visibility of the HR functions and how it was working. And that was one of the things that when we defined the problem, he told us two things. Help us out to develop the HR strategy for the years to come, but please give us visibility and a good analytical way to manage resources, human resources, because they knew how to manage construction, they knew how to manage pipe budgets and everything, but human resources, they didn't have visibility. So clearly, these are all engineers, and I have to say that because that was the thinking, right? So CEO was an engineer, and he wanted to solve the problem in the engineer way. So he needed the tools to do that. Next. So as part of the development, I'm sorry for the formatting here, just some things out of place there, but one of the outcomes of the end products that V2A crafted for the client, was a whole holistic HR strategy. And you can see on the left the different initiatives or macro initiatives. The first one, the reviewing or redesigning HR processes, but as well as that, as an HR strategy, they needed to establish a corporate university. They needed to establish competency models to manage the talent well, and they wanted to achieve the great place to work, recognition, so that they, and follow that with all the KPIs that, to hit that goal. But particularly in the review HR process, we divided that in 3 stages, 3 waves of implementations, where the basic one, the first one was to get the basics right. I mean, you need to have visibility of how long is a application for a change of, I want to go work in a different area, how long it took. That wasn't, nobody knew, and it took too long. So they wanted to have visibility on that. And then, set the organizational foundation as a second wave, meaning formalize certain processes with a tool, so that if you are a regional manager wanted to hire people, you would have to go through a process, an organized process, that you will request that resources to HR, and you go through the approval and the workflow in an organized but agile way. And then just aim to get to the world-class level with continuous improvement efforts, also enabled with technology. Okay, next. So as an outcome of that HR strategy project, what the V2A left to the client was a set of initiatives and how they were prioritized based on the impact those initiatives have and the ease of implementation. So clearly, the upper right-hand side quadrant is the one that you want to focus as an organization, because it's easy to implement, or not easy. It's never easy, but the conditions are set so that you can implement those initiatives, and the impact is really high. And in particular, the one that we're going to talk about today, there are many of them. As you can see, some of them touch upon labor relations. We developed a tool for labor relations in Caspio too. Some of them were more supporting infrastructure for the HR or PMO. Some of them were cultural, that had nothing to do with Caspio, but they had to do with the tool. You're using more technology, more structure. Some of them were performance, talent, and compensation based. We're going to double click on the HR capacity one. And for that, I'm going to hand it out to Marian, who's going to explain us a little bit what is HR capacity exactly, what does the tool does, what is exactly that we automated, and we take it from there as to review the case and the tool. So Marian.
Thank you, Rene. So as Rene mentioned, right, the first and main objective from the CEO was to really understand what are my capacity needs, right? And for that, and be able to give them visibility on those, we basically developed Smart Tool with Akcelita and using Caspio as a base to do three main things, right? To be able to request needs and understand our needs for each specific area. Understanding needs meaning how having visibility on how much people do I have for each area to be able to do everything that has to be done, compared to also how much more people do we need, right? So in that sense, we can have full visibility of our gaps, right? And be able to then take decisions according to those. And another way, we also are able to manage then constraints that have to do with recommendations that we want to do pertaining to any processes, and people management as well, that are aligned to what the works and the different visions that this utility may have. Additionally, to also being able to then update all the information and the demand that it's the thing that is responsible of being able to calculate and provide visibility on what are those needs for each department and tool. So in essence, Smart Tool provides those three things, and together gives the tool to make decisions in an HR perspective. So in that sense, I don't know, Renee, if you want to complement anything or add, but.
So one question, Mariam, from my end would be, could you maybe, for benefit of the audience, expand on the concept of TFT? What does that mean?
Sure, yes. So for V2A to be able to understand what are the capacity needs in the utility, we basically narrowed it down to a very bottom-up analysis, as we want to call it, right? So we need to understand all the tasks that each department does, understand the demand or the frequencies, that's the S. And additionally, how much time do we dedicate to be able to complete each of these tasks, okay? So that's the main driver. And Caspio, we use it as the database to be able to manage all that information that in return, we will be able to have and visualize in a dashboard that we will be seeing in the demo for them to then take any decisions that they need to do. So, thank you. Yeah. So now,
yes. The next slide, if we go to the next slide, it's a little bit the technical side of what Marianne said, right? So Marianne just explained that what is the tool trying to balance, and this is true for everybody, right? So needs, demands, and the constraints, this is something that we all have to manage in every organization, right? So we were automating that, but how we did it in the technical side, as I mentioned at the beginning, right? So we worked mostly in Caspio, and of course we deployed on a AWS a site with to create a nicer UI, right? And so we embedded that there, and some of the components of the tool and most of the dashboard we did on PHP. At the time we developed this, Caspio was not in the version that it is today, so there's a lot of things that we had to do on PHP. I think you can do it out of the box today from Caspio directly, but what you're gonna see, it's mostly the dashboard deployed on this way. And importantly, one of the things that I think that made this tool sustainable is that it integrated with some of their current systems, specifically with SAP. And so it's a large utility. So they run preventive maintenance with SAP. All the old work orders are registered there. So there is a demand that can be kept and understood there because they can order materials. So it's the heart of the company is run, if you will, on SAP itself, finance, preventive maintenance, quality, all that, except the HR, which is being run in this application, Smart Tool. And so that interaction had to be built so that we could understand how many people were in staff at on a daily basis, how many resources were requested for maintenance or for construction. That's updated every day. And there are four or five other tables that we have to refresh in order to the Smart Tool to provide accurate and daily information to the decision makers. And that's basically the technical side. I mean, as you can see, there's no many things around, and what I mentioned at the beginning is because the whole back end we built it on Caspio, and connecting Caspio with SAP was very easy. I mean, it's actually no code connection too, because what we need to understand is what is the tables that we need to pull or receive, and that's it. And there's a screen to do that within Caspio. We can talk about that. You will find my information at the end. We can really help you with this if you can write to my email there. A little bit of commercial in the middle of the presentation. So I will now. Marion is going to lead us with the demo, live demo for that purpose. So Marion.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to be switching over. Okay. So here we have the opening page of Smart Tool, right? That, as you may see, we have different models in order for them to, keep the information updated and be able to manage from the different roles that need to interact with the tool. But particularly, we're going to go and jump in so you could have a flavor of how or what is this dashboard that we use for decision-making purposes in the different departments and different leaders of each department, right? So on the top of the tool, we're going to see how was the information built in terms of the organization, right? So we're going to go from top down for them to be able to have full visibility in all aspects of the organization. So here we can see this is sort of the tracker of the information, and we go from the toppest, which is the regions. The utility is composed of 5 main regions. And furthermore, we can go to each department, unit, specific geographical area, onto the smallest level, which would be the specific position that we're going to see within those units and areas. Additionally, we also provide comparisons along the way for them to have visibility of opportunities within the same region, position, and unit compared with other areas for them to be able to find opportunities of redistribution. And at the end, what do they want? Right? They want to balance out the organization. So they want to make decisions so that recruiting from an outsource, it's the last option, right? So in that way, I could go and show just maybe one example of how the interaction with the dashboard goes. And then we can also go ahead and pass on to the different access and reports that we have within the tool to be able to interact with it and have more visibility, right? So here, in essence, the dashboard provides, as we explained earlier within the methodology, we're going to see in the first column the required FTEs, right, for each region and specific department or unit that we're seeing. On the second column, we're going to be able to compare that required FTEs or capacity needs with the current and available FTEs for them to do or be assigned to a specific job. And then that will provide the gap. It's no other thing than understanding excesses or needs within each department. Additional to the final 2 columns, where we have specific deficiencies and excess within that gap or that composes that net gap to be able to do these opportunities that I mentioned earlier, right? So this is, in essence, it's provided for the different managers to be able to, prior to making any movement of personnel, be able to understand how this area is, right? And how I could make it a little bit more sustainable and making sure that we are using the resources where we really need them. Okay, so going over to, give me a second. Pardon me, I can't see my viewing pane. It's blocking to be able to see the web page. 1 second.
So Mariam, you might be able to move that if the Caspio bar, the Zoom bar is blocking it. You might be able to drag it down.
Yep. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so above the Zoom, we have this menu bar, which we have different choices, right? And in essence, I'm not going to go in detail through all of them, but we have the visibility of what are the activities that are composing that required FTEs or the capacity. And that's where we would have access to all the Caspio database that in essence it's what's responsible of being able to reflect this calculated FTEs. And the other menu bars, it's a little bit sort of the tracking system that also the tool has to be able to see the progress on all the requests, right, that are being entered through the tool. In this sense, the tool makes decisions based on the gaps, right? So each department could request the needs, and then depending on the gap available at that time, then the flow would go further, right? A little bit of providing that decision for them. So going over to seeing how the database, right, it's here available for the tool. As an example, we could go through the search within the activities, taking a region, for example, and then maybe going to a specific geographical area within a department and a specific unit. And there, once they search, they can actually have full visibility on all the activities, times, frequencies, right? That's not other thing than volume driven or workload for each position within that unit. And this is Caspio, right? This is the database and everything that it's filtering the information to the dashboard. It's Caspio, and this is something that they could keep updating, right? As we mentioned earlier, it could be updated by two ways. They can manually go inside the tool and do all the updates that are required. And additionally, some of the volumes might be coming from SAP, which is what they use to be able to document all the work orders that they generate and all the different labors that they need to do. Okay. So onto here, I think my demo. I don't know if there's any questions. I saw there were a little bit of questions in the chat. I don't know if we want to go ahead and maybe address them or.
Yeah, there were.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Renee did answer them, but I'll just cover them here for everyone's benefit, and especially for those who will view this as a recording and may not be able to see the chat. Oh. So the first question was, what, and maybe Renee, you can address the answers yourself. I'll just cover the question. The first question was, what technology do you use to connect to SAP? Yeah.
So what I wrote there, it's, Caspio offers two ways to do this. One is using through an API, REST API. And then the other one is, through scheduled tasks. So depending on what you need, I mean, this application did not, wasn't critical to have real-time data. So we did a scheduled task where we exchanged, predefined tables and data structure with SAP. And as I said, it's something that it's within Caspio. You go to scheduled task and you can program this task to exchange files with any system for that matter using the SFTP. Now for the APIs, you do have to have a little bit more coding. That's not low code completely, and that's where my team comes in and develops and understand what is the request that we have to send and receive to get that going. Okay.
Sorry, thanks. Thanks, Renee. For this dashboard, do you use 5 data pages or n number of data pages, or how many data pages were used for the whole dashboard?
So the dashboard is the part that we did in PHP, actually outside Caspio. It's running on an AWS server where we have the website. And the why we did it that way, because Marion couldn't show that, but it's clickable. You can drill down on that page, and that's a feature that we couldn't find in the charts that Caspio provides out of the box. But that data page, however, that PHP page pulls data from Caspio, of course, and what it does is a report page that we don't see, and that data is passed to the PHP, which deploys all the information and draws the graph and does all the things. But so to the question, it's not a data page per se. You cannot find a out-of-the-box database that would do that, but we need a report data page in order to fill the information that the PHP displays after. So that it's also not low code, but it's because of the requirements of the project and the way the V2A wanted to design the dashboard and the decision-making process that require adaptation. Suffice to say that it wasn't complicated to do it because, as Nick mentioned at the beginning, it's not that we needed to learn a particular language that Caspio used in order to interact with it. We could develop it. We could have developed it in any other. We could have used React and connect to. I mean, it depends on what your tool set is. But PHP is nice because it's in the back end, and there's other technical things that we use that for, and we could deploy and deliver what V2A needed.
Right.
And there's another question there from George.
Yeah, exactly. And so you mentioned some work had to be done in PHP, can be done in Caspio. Is this the case?
Everything could have been done in Caspio, but maybe the behavior of the things would have been different. Okay, so and as I mentioned, I haven't explored the version 31, Nick, I have to confess, but they have improved a lot the charting of the visual representation of information. So again, we did in PHP because the behavior of the clickability, if you will, of the charts that we wanted to have was at that time not existing in Caspio. So that's why we did it there. Otherwise, we would have done a chart, a report chart with the information that we needed. And George, yeah, you would have had to have different data pages for each chart, if that's what you were thinking, in order to provide that information. We went through that problem solving actually, but it was easier to go PHP and do it in just one shot rather than going to 5 different data pages.
Understood. And so Renee and Mariam, through your journey of executing this project on Caspio, what are some of the best practices or learnings that came out of this project?
A lot of them. Mariam, want to take a shot?
I do have to say one of the most important best practices is the integration of all teams early on in the game, right? So once V2A Consulting is helping the client, understand the capacity needs and already have a clear vision on what they want to be able to do with that information. Well, integrating technology part early on while we are designing on how it's going to be that process to manage the capacity was a plus, because then we make sure that we're not designing or over compromising something with the client that maybe could not be done or could not be done on time. And an added value for them to also understand the methodology behind V2A's approach, for them to be able to adapt and provide tangible solutions or tools that could help them have that visibility. So for me, that's the biggest takeaway and an applause in that sense. I don't know, Renee, if you could think of something else.
I can think about a lot of learnings here because we got, as everyone trying to start something from, without knowing necessarily, we got burned a couple times, right? One of them was with the data structure. And I would tell anyone that is starting a large project, overinvest in the data structure because, it happened to us in this particular project. We started in a way that, when we wanted to create reports and create more flexibility in the tool, we had to go back and redesign the data structure. So, go to your tables, make your relationships, do what you were told in, on the technical side, try to structure your tables nicely because that will help a lot to on the flexibility side, mostly on creating views and creating better reports when you use that. That's one of the biggest learnings that right now I'm applying to all my projects, really taking the time to understand and design the data structure. And this is something that V2A Consulting doesn't necessarily see, but it's important for them to be part of that problem solving because we do interact with them. How do you need this info? For how long? Can we, this field is what? So there is a lot of scoping, if you will, on the data part that helps to ease pain in the future. The other thing is that also we learn to integrate the consultant with our work because it's nice to have someone that is doing the consulting work understand the way Caspio works because they can do work themselves and they can also do what Mariam said, become more educated in what to promise and what not to promise. So if they know a little bit what the good things about using Caspio and some of the natural restriction, and it will happen with any technology, right? Given the time, I have these restrictions. If they know a little bit about it, they can, catch problems right before they come up. Do not offer something that we cannot deliver, at least not in the time frame, because everything can be done. But as you answered, you don't have the time and you don't have the resources. So you have to make what you can do with the time and resources that you have. And so that's the second one, that it's very important for us to integrate the consultants to our work so that they understand what they're doing. And I guess the third one is, when we're building the applications, really think about the admin side. Typically, when we start the applications, we have the user in mind, the end user in mind, and we go flying over to provide that, that interface. But do not forget that you have to maintain that. So the tables and the authorizations and the users and all that. Even though Caspio facilitates a lot about that, you need to create a module that is going to be the admin module. So that sometimes it comes back to bite you, because it takes time. It takes time. It's actually part of when we think about the data structure, intentionally, we have to think about the data structure, how the admin side will behave. What access are you going to be controlling? What updates are you going to be doing? What things are you going to give the client, the final client, to do? So in this example, it was that admin side wasn't as daunting because it's not a SaaS tool per se. I mean, it's not that this is the only client that's going to use this tool. But if you're designing or deploying other apps, and we've done this in Akcelita for startups. We've designed MVPs for startups where they want to create the tool for multiple clients. So the white labeling has to be a feature that the admin module of the startup owner has to be able to put a new logo for a different company. It's the same application, but you have to build into that white labeling capability or multi-tenant capability. So that you have to do it from the beginning. So it's important to have that in mind when you're designing. Okay. Don't know if there's another question.
That's great. Thanks, Mariam and Renee. It's our final call for questions. If you all have any questions, please feel free to chime in now. You can also reach out to Akcelita at www.akcelita.com. That is spelled AKCELITA.com. And also email them at info@akcelita.com. If you would like to discuss this project further, or if you have any other projects in mind.
And also, Nick, I have to say that if there is an HR practitioner or a professional there that really needs to have a different view, a strategic view of it, info@V2A Consulting, also it's important. That's something that we have a practice there that does that. I'm not 100% in V2A Consulting. I'm in Akcelita, but that's my sister company. So there's a lot of work that was done before we even got into the technology part. Okay, so not to underplay that. And so V2A Consulting can help on that too.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, that's a great reminder as well. So yeah, from a technology perspective, Rene and his team at Akcelita can help, and from a management consulting, HR consulting perspective, Mariam and her team at V2A Consulting can be of help, and they can be reached at v2aconsulting.com. It's all one word, v2aconsulting.com. Is their website, and their email is info@v2aconsulting.com as well.
Yeah.
And so I think there are no other questions at this point of time, and we are almost running up on time. So yeah, I would want to extend on behalf of everyone at Caspio, heartfelt thanks to Renee and Mariam for your time today. And thanks to everyone in the audience as well for attending. And we hope you got some great takeaways from the webinar today.
Send my best to the team. Shout out to Sabina, Napoleon, Frank, George, everybody there.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. In fact, some of them are attending this webinar as well. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But the others, I'll let them know as well. Okay.
Johannes, I owe you. I owe him. I owe him a visit. Okay, thank you very much. You have a great day, Nick. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for the invite. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.